Hey guys, in today's video, we are going to talk about property tax assessments and how to go about the appeals process and things to look out for. Now, this is something that can catch a lot of people off guard. So there's going to be a lot of good information here, especially if you're a homeowner in Georgia. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am a real estate agent. I currently reside in Fulton County, but I have lived in the other counties all throughout Atlanta. We're in the time of year where the assessed values and assessments come out for properties all throughout the state. Now, a lot of times they're going to come out in the middle to the end of June, and you have a 45-day window to potentially tackle an appeal. The downside of this, if you do not get your letter in the mail, that is not grounds for missing an appeal window. The property assessments are posted online with your local county and their tax records, and it's your job as a homeowner to actually go in and make sure that you're understanding the new value and taking the proactive steps if needed to go about the appeals process. For Fulton County, that ends up being August 1st. So we have until August 1st to actually do any appeals of our tax assessments. Now, something a lot of people don't realize is over time, the home values typically outpace the tax assessors. And that's just because the market has been crazy the past few years. But once a property sells and changes hands, that's when the assessor will go in and revalue, especially based on either not only the sales history and the recording, but also just getting an aggregate of what's going on in the area for market value. This is a reason that a lot of times you may see a higher priced home or a more expensive home that's not for sale have much lower property taxes than one that sold recently at even half the rate. I know homes around here that are approaching $2 million that actually have yearly property taxes that are lower than recent homes that have sold in the million range. And that's just because these homeowners, for however long they've been there, have continually had lower rates that have had more incremental adjustments compared to a recent sale that's automatically now getting hit at a much higher value. So some things to look out for is obviously, is the assessed value that's coming in line with not only what you paid for it, but your determination of the value of the property. Are homes in the neighborhood actually selling for more than the assessed value? If that's the case, then a lot of times it may be difficult to actually get that appeal processed. But if it's something like 2025, where we've actually seen the market soften a little bit in some areas, prices have retreated, you can make a case that just because my property was worth X last year, this year, based on recent sales, it may actually be a little bit lower than that, and there's grounds to potentially do that appeal. Now, there are tons of different options and things to look out for depending on what qualifies for an appeal, but there are other ways to potentially save as well. You have a homestead exemption depending on your county, you have senior exemptions, you can get exemptions for being a certain status or having kids that are not in the school system and removing that public school tax. So those are some things to look out for depending on where you're located. But as far as the appeals go, typically what you're going to do is if you want to dispute it, you can actually do it yourself online through your tax assessor's office. They're going to have a letter that you're going to form and fill out with your information, how you want to go about the dispute, and you have to come to them with your reasoning as to why you feel like the valuation is wrong. Now, a lot of times this can be as simple as just preparing a market analysis or comparable sales. This is something that I do for clients this time of year free of charge, just to make sure that they're not overpaying on their property taxes. One important distinction is the fact that property taxes are going to be different from the assessed value. The property taxes are based on the assessed value and the millage rate, but the property tax bills don't actually come out until later in the year. A lot of times we see those coming out in September and October and being due in November. So that's why it's crucial to get ahead of that and make sure that you're actually taking care of an appeal or any information that's needed within this 45-day window from when things are posted. Last year, horror story, we had just moved, things got crazy with our family. I actually didn't get our new assessment letter in the mail, completely forgot about it and missed our window for our appeal on our personal property. So now this year, I'm actually going back in and playing catch up. Now, over time, the way the appeals process has kind of changed over the past few years. In 2016 in Georgia, they changed it so that you no longer necessarily have to appeal every year. It used to be if you appealed, regardless of the appeal, you could be eligible for a 3-year freeze on the assessed value, whether you won or lost. And this was just to avoid the assessor's office getting backed up with people just repeatedly appealing year after year. As of 2025, that's actually changed. So in order to get a 3-year freeze on the assessed value, you have to win your appeal. You no longer automatically just get a freeze for filing an appeal and losing. And that's why it's crucial that you are armed with as much information as needed to actually convey your point and give a good shot at your case getting approved. Now, as an agent, there's tons of information that I can provide to somebody, whether it's your real estate agent or you're just a homeowner compiling data from looking online. We can help with that, or there are actual real estate professionals. A lot of the closing attorneys or real estate law firms in Georgia will have an appeals process sector that you could potentially pay a flat fee. Sometimes it's based on the property value, or they'll take a percentage of the perceived savings and at least kind of give you an idea of if it makes sense to go forward with the appeal. So I'm going to drop some information down below where you can have access to a template as far as the letter and how to approach the appeals process and what it would look like if you're submitting comparable sales. And I'm also just going to link out some options for local attorneys that clients have worked with if you want to have a professional actually do a consultation and potentially file the appeal on your behalf. But I hope this is helpful. I definitely want to see, obviously, property values go up for all homeowners, but at the same time, if you can save some money or you're being assessed incorrectly, it's important that you stay on top of this and not overpay on your taxes. So as a reminder, the assessed bills come out in June. You have a 45-day window. Our appeal deadline is August 1st, and then you'll start seeing the actual tax bills come out in September and October. That'll be due in November. Depending on county you're in, you may also not only have the county taxes, but the city taxes. For Alpharetta, I have Fulton County and the city of Alpharetta. So making sure that I know all of the things that are lining up for both of them and I'm paying the appropriate amounts is always crucial, especially when they're mailing hard copies of things. So take some time, go onto your county site, just pull up your address, make sure you have all the updated information. And if you have any questions or if there's anything I can do to help that would be valuable, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to be assistance.